I don't know if people are just really interested in prison topics or if people are interested in the Carmelo Anthony situation. But yesterday's video, when we discussed the Carmelo Anthony situation and what I think his next couple of days, weeks, and months may actually look like, it got a lot of views in comparison to my regular videos. So we're gonna try another prison topic video, and because I'm trying to understand, do you guys like prison topics, or or was it just because Carmelo Anthony is a hot topic right now? But either way it goes, I am a former correction officer, so I could talk about this a little bit more. So on that video, a subscriber left a comment, and it was something along the lines of pretty much what happens to inmates with medical issues or serious medical issues, something like dialysis or things like that. So that's what sparked up the idea for me to talk about, medical for inmates. Like, how does that whole process work? What happens if you got a toothache, or if you got you may have cancer or something like that. What happens, right? So we're gonna discuss that today. So first and foremost, if inmates are feeling ill, they can, obviously, if it's serious, really serious, like let's say an inmate just got into a fight or something like that, they would automatically go down to medical. Once it's broken up, they will go down to medical. But let's not talk about that. Let's just say you got a stomach bug or whatever. You're just not feeling you're feeling a little off, right? They have, an inmate could put in what's called a sick call slip, okay? It's like a form, or they could write it on a piece of paper. If there's no more forms left and they try to go to the CO, be like, yo, can I get a sick call slip? You might not have any left, okay? So they can write it on a piece of paper, just, named in what's your medical issue or whatever, and then you drop it in a sick call box. Now, typically somewhere along in the evening time, on the 3 to 11 shift, but more towards the end of the shift, a CO is going to come around and collect the sick call slips. Now it's put into a box, so it's kind of like discreet in a way or whatever. So they're going to come take all the sick call slips and stuff like that or whatever. So now they're going to make out the list of every cell block, housing unit, whatever, however many inmates have sick call for the next day, because sick call it'll be in the morning the next day. So let's say it's that evening, inmates are putting in for their sick call slips, whatever, they're dropping it in the box. Let's say around 9-10 o'clock at night, the CO comes around, collects all the sick call slips, and then he brings it to the infirmary or wherever he brings it to, and then they will make out the list, like, so housing unit 1A, housing unit 1B, or cell block C, cell block A, whatever, right? And they're going to make out the list of all the inmates' names that have to come down for sick call the next morning. So that's what happens in the evening time, right? And then now let's go on to the next shift, which will be the overnight shift. Sometime really early in the morning. It's typically around like 4 o'clock, 4 or 5, around 4 o'clock or so. Like 4 o'clock. A CO is gonna drop off a paper, and on that paper it's gonna have all the names of the inmates that have sick call in a couple of hours, right? So you take it, you post it up, or you could let the inmates know, whatever, right? So it's typically the way I did it. When I worked overnights, I would just tape it up to the board or whatever, and the inmates could come up in the morning or whatever, and they could look at their name. Okay, they know they have sick call, right? I'm not going waking up the inmates at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so anyway, so that's how I would do it. And then they would go to sick call. Now, whatever their medical issue is or whatever, it's a whole bunch of them waiting down there in the infirmary. And the infirmary is like the jail, like, medical facility or whatever, right? But it's a quick, fast one. They're not taking care of no real big issues. So they will go down to the infirmary or whatever, and then they will have their appointment with their doctor or dentist or whatever the case may be. Let's say they have a eye issue. The eye doctor may only be there a couple of days out the week, not every day. So they, whatever, right? So when they go down there, let's say it's a serious issue that's going on, for the staff, for the facility not to take on so much risk, they're probably going to schedule a outside appointment, right? So a trip, and they would get some COs together or whatever. And okay, this inmate has a serious medical problem or whatever. We can't treat it here or whatever. Let's send them to the outside hospital. So now a trip would happen, and the inmate will go to an outside hospital. So your regular hospital, when you get sick, a regular hospital, okay, there'll be COs that'll bring them there, and they'll do a more, in-depth, see what's going on, yada yada yada, right? So now that can happen, that happens, and depending on what hospital he goes to, and depending on the situation, he can go to a hospital where there's like a inmate portion to it, like a jail portion of it that's designed for inmates inside your regular hospital. Or it would be a regular hospital. He'll be in the emergency room just like you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But here in New York State, there are certain hospitals that also have a inmate portion built into it, so they will be kept separate, and stuff like that. So you really wouldn't see them in the general public, but the prison got to be near that hospital and stuff like that. So for the most part, inmates will go to a regular hospital and be seen, obviously by regular doctors and stuff like that. Then they'll do their diagnosis and all of that stuff. Now, in the case of someone having dialysis, right? Let's say there is an inmate that's on dialysis, and they they got to go get their treatments every day and stuff like that or whatever, right? One or two things will happen. Either every day the inmate will be at the regular housing, at the regular facility, right? His regular prison, and have a trip every day or whenever he has to go do his dialysis or whatever. And then every morning, inmate Jones is going out on a trip. There's going to be two COs that take him out on a trip. It's going to be the same thing every single day. Or he could get admitted to or transferred to another jail or another prison that has like a hospital kind of built into it. So there's a couple of things that can happen. One, he can get transferred to a prison that has a hospital built into it, not like sick call. Sick call is like, that's like going to like the urgent care for inmates, right? I'm trying to put it into the better words that I can say, but sick call is like, or the infirmary is like going to, urgent care, right? But they could do minimal stuff, yada, 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 but it's not that advanced. Now, some prisons have hospitals built in them. It's a separate building, and it's like more in depth. It might hold maybe 20, 30 inmates. And these are guys that are like ill, terminally ill, stuff like that. They got nurses and stuff working on them all the time. You might have dialysis treatments going on over there, all that type of stuff. It's a little bit more in depth. They could go to a spot like that. So that's an option. They can either get transferred to a prison like that, or they're when they go on their outside visits or their medical trips, they would either go to their medical trip, instead of being at a outside hospital or something like that, it might be at a facility like that. So you'll just be taking an inmate to another prison, but to the hospital part, and then they'll do their treatment there, and then you bring them back to the jail, that the prison that they're at. Or the last option is they would go for their regular treatments at the hospital or wherever it is that they got to do their dialysis work and stuff like that. And then so moving on into that, there's a time where an inmate passed away on me. Okay. All right. I'm gonna tell you a story about the time an inmate passed away on me. I literally watched this guy pass away. Okay. So this was my first year. This was within my first year in corrections. And this stuff doesn't happen all the time. Most COs will probably never even experience this. It's crazy. But the prison that I was working at was actually far away from my home. It was like 2 hours away. It was like an hour and a half away. But there was a hospital that, remember I told you that there's certain hospitals that have inmate like jails in them, you know, like where like your regular local hospital has an inmate portion to it, and they won't be mixed in with the general public. So there's one of those hospitals that was like around an hour away from my home. So it was shorter. It was faster for me to get to that hospital than to go to my actual working prison. So a lot of times, if they had inmates at the hospital or something like that, they would just assign me to go to the hospital versus going to the prison, because I could get there faster. So it worked out. So in one summer, there was an inmate that had cancer, and he, I was assigned to him pretty much every 3 to 11 shift. I would go, and watch this guy or whatever. And because we would do like shift change at the hospital. And in the beginning, he was all right. Like, he was talking and stuff like that. The inmate was talking, watching TV or whatever. But as the days and weeks, I watched this guy for probably like 2 weeks. And as you could see him, his time is up. You know what I mean? And so towards the end there was like the last couple of days or whatever, it was me and another CO. It was always me and a different CO or whatever. And since I was on this guy a lot, the old timers is like teaching me what to do if he does pass away. So it's like the last day when he does pass away, they're coaching me up. They're like, yo, you got to do this, do this, do this, do this. And I'm like a nervous wreck because I'm new. I'm still new. You know what I mean? Like, it's my it's my first year. So like, I'm new to this. I don't know nothing for real. I'm still wet behind the ears. And this particular day, a lot of the times I was the younger officer, but this particular day I was with an officer that had less time than me. So I was the senior guy. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Cause if you're not the senior guy, you could, you know what I'm saying? You follow his lead. You not the leader. It's like you follow his. But this particular time, I'm the senior guy. And anyways, the guy ends up passing away. Okay. We're sitting there in the room. He ends up coding. Like 30 people running that room, man, and you just gotta get out the way. It's like, get out the way. You gotta sit at the door, like stand at the door, and there's like a bunch of nurses coming in, a bunch of doctors coming in, and everything, you know. And so they're working on him. They're doing the chest compressions. They're doing the, you can hear the bones cracking. You can hear it's over. This guy is cooked. He's done up, out of here, sent to the afterlife, man. And after that process, there's some paperwork that has to be done, but it's very difficult. Right? The paperwork part is actually easy, but it's difficult to get it done because the way it works, mad people come in that room, and then when it's done, everybody disperses. Like, it's just like, what? So now you gotta find, as the CO, you gotta find the doctor who did the time of, who's pronouncing the time of death and everything like that, because they gotta fill out paperwork. But the problem is, there's like 30 doctors in there. Like, it's insane. You got nurses, doctors, respiratory people. They're all just in there. And so whatever, we had to get all of that paperwork done and stuff like that. I actually ended up did find the person or whatever. It was a lady doctor. She was very nice and stuff, and she signed the paperwork, whatever. But she knew I'm wet behind the ears, man. She knew, like, it was like, yo. So after that, I'm just sitting in there with a dead body, honestly. Kind of awkward. Okay. Because at that time, now you're just waiting for you to sign the you know, for them to bring them down to the morgue, and you're gonna sign it over to sign the body over to the hospital or whatever the case may be and stuff like that. You know, but during that process, like if an inmate is having cancer and stuff like that, family can come and visit. This guy, he didn't, you know, his family didn't come and visit him, and stuff like that, whatever. But yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, that's typically what happens with more medical, with more difficult medical situations. There's different medical facilities that they can go to. You know, they could either just go to the hospital, right? Or they can go to a prison that has a hospital built into it, you know, and, you know, get their treatments and their work and stuff like that done there. If it's something, you know, less difficult, you know, something minor, then they would just go down to sick call. You know, let's say you got a stomach bug or something, you can go down to sick call, get some Pepto-Bismol and call it a day or something, you know what I'm saying? Or let's say you got a headache, and go down there and give you some Tylenol. They give you Tylenol for everything. So it's like, you know, you go down there, all right, whatever, you know. So those are different things that happen. I got some notes here. Let me just look over my notes and see if I'm missing anything. Yeah, inmates could come visit, you know, especially for outside, you know, it would be supervised, but if an inmate does have something serious like that, they could get permission from the family, could get permission from the jail, and be able to come to the outside hospital and visit their family member or whatever. But a lot of times with inmates, their family don't, you know, especially if you're probably a lifer or something like that. And at that time in my career, I was working at a maximum security prison, so I'm working with a whole lot of inmates that's doing a lot of time. They doing life, they doing 100 years, 60 years, you know, 25, 35, you know, like Anthony or Carmelo Anthony, he got a 35 piece. He going to a max, you know. So that's where I started off my career, in a maximum security prison. So yeah, there are different things like that. Medical treatments, you know, it could either be taken care of in-house or outside. If it's taken care of outside, then, you know, obviously COs will be with him at all times and stuff like that. Whew. So that's that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And Yeah, a little different. You know, I don't really talk about prison topics, but the reaction that we got from the last video, I'm like, wait, hold on. People might actually be interested in this stuff. You know what I mean? So that's that, man. But hopefully you guys got a little bit of insight of what can happen and stuff like that with inmates with medical issues and stuff like that. And the same thing with COs. Like if COs get hurt and stuff like that, they would you know, they would send them to the hospital. You know, sometimes if it's a big deal, they'll call the ambulance. The ambulance will come to the jail or come to the prison, and you know, you will go by ambulance. If you got to go by ambulance, then you know another CO will be with you. And the same thing with inmates. You know, another CO will be, you know, the COs will be in the ambulance with you. One will be driving the van and trailing, and then one CO will actually be in the ambulance with the inmate and stuff like that. Kind of like how we see on these body cam videos. If they got to go to the hospital, you'll see a cop follow with them, and then you'll see a cop, you know, riding in the ambulance with the with the suspect or whatever. So it's the same kind of thing. But yeah, so I'll catch you guys in the next video.